From Everybody Studios, we're jumping off the pages of SouthPark Magazine as we bring the stories to life that make up the art and soul of Charlotte. This is SouthPark Says with Krisha Chachra. Well, pull up, turn it up, and take a seat. We're talking to SouthPark Magazine's style editor. This is episode 4 of SouthPark Says with Krisha Chachra. Joining me today is SouthPark Magazine style editor Whitley Adkins, who is celebrating her 10th year with the magazine this month. Whitley, welcome to Everybody Studios.
Thank you for having me, Krisha.
I'm so happy you're here. You look great. I don't think anyone would question that you're a style editor, but 10 years, my goodness, good for you.
Should we give a high 10?
Yes, a high 10 right now. Oh, this is what happens
We're
when you're wearing
not supposed to move, right?
We don't want to get out of place at all.
Okay.
But yeah, you look like 10 million bucks. So I want to talk to you today about how you landed this job, because this is like the envy of a lot of people who are in fashion in Charlotte and beyond. You started with the magazine before they even had a style section, I think. Is that correct?
I think that might be accurate. I'm not 100% sure. I believe there were some. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I believe there were some fashion shoots taking place from time to time, but that changed, yes, I would say.
When you came on board.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And yes, I will take ma'am too, I mean, I think I've earned that. So tell us a little bit about how you got the idea about being a style editor, how you wanted to use your passions and your talents in this way.
Well, Krisha, I think it really was about the artists around me and the other people around me. At the time, Caroline Portillo, my second editor for SouthPark Magazine, was executive editing SouthPark, Carolina Bride, Lake Norman Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And she had all three of those. And she was coming up with great ideas for fashion features on top of, all the other things that the magazine was covering. And she had her plate very full. And I was starting to conceptualize more projects, more fashion projects for the magazine and style related. And so I just went to her and I just said, Caroline, I see that you have a lot going on right now. I'm already doing this. Would it be helpful if we create this position and we can call it the style editor, and I can basically take some of this off of your plate and work more closely with the artist.
Good
and
for
so that's
you.
sort of how it came about.
So you basically designed a title for yourself, a role for yourself, and made yourself relevant for the magazine. And because of that, you have now spent 10 years elevating the magazine's style and fashion pages. You've had many covers, and one of which I was very honored to be working with you on, the Greenbrier cover, which was 2 years ago. Can you believe it was 2 years ago in November?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. I mean, that was a dream for us.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been all over the area, the region, if not the country, doing these photo shoots. I mean, was this what you imagined when you pitched it to her in the beginning?
No. And actually, I pitched my first project that I pitched for the magazine was a little over 10 years ago, and it was to Sarah Crosland, who was the editor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it all started. But so when you ask me, could I imagine, the answer is no. I have no idea no, I had no idea.
That what it would become and how it would keep the magazine relevant in the city.
Okay, you're really sweet, Krisha.
I mean, really.
Can we hang out all the time?
We can, either on or off camera.
Yeah,
we do, actually.
I know we do. And
we've done
a
few projects, which, I mean, it was wonderful to see, your work, because not only do you come up with the idea of the shoot, and, we have in the studio here, we have one of your favorite photographers.
One of my very, very best friends.
Yes. You can name him.
Husband, work husband, best friend, big brother, little brother when he needs to be treated like a little brother, Richard Israel, the one and only.
Yeah. So he's been working with you as well as some other photographers to kind of bring to life what you vision for the magazine. And so let's walk through that process, if you don't mind, because I think people would be interested to find out, how do you come up with the idea? Like, one of them that comes to mind is you were doing, I believe, a shoot with a family outside of their home, and she was on a swing.
Oh, yeah.
Right outside. I mean, and so tell us a little bit about that story and how that happened.
Well, I I cannot take credit for really almost any of that. So Wade and Hodges Miller are close friends of mine. I was working with Hodges, doing private styling with Hodges. Wade hired me to work with her for her 40th birthday, and this is pretty typical. I walk into someone's home to meet with them to work in their closet, and I'm stopped dead in my tracks and say, can we please photograph your home? Can we please photograph your life? Because it's so stylish.
Right.
I'm so visually charged, Krisha.
Mm-hmm.
Our friend Brooke Maples told me that.
Yes.
And that's the best term for it. I'm so visually charged. So what happens is I will like go to the store to get like a cupcake or something. And the next thing I know, it's blown into way more than a cupcake. And it sort of happens that way when I meet with clients. And so I walked into their home and it was just the most coolest, modern, hip. And there was this, not a painting, sort of a graphic work of art of David Bowie in the sunken living room. And I just said, can we please? And Wade as a builder. And so, they said yes. And they are such stylish, cool people. And so really that was a dream project in every way because they are such creative people and artistic people that when I said, can we do this? They said, absolutely, let's go. And then I said, okay, well, tell me some of your hobbies. What are the things you are interested in? Because I really like to story tell with people's personal stories based on their interests. And the fashion and the style is just sort of like the basis for it all, but really tell the stories of these folks. And I can't remember if they go climbing or rappelling, but needless to say, that's what led to the shot
swing.
of Hodges rappelling in a vintage caftan with her daughter, her 2-year-old daughter in the seat underneath.
I mean, that was magical. So, I mean, it does take a vision, but also the story is within the subject matter itself. So the people that you're photographing. And I also have seen it where you hire models to bring your images to life. So there was, of course, that Greenbrier shot where we had the two lovely models looking up on that very iconic Dorothy Draper
in the presidential
suite, the staircase. So, I mean, just to visually like have a shot from above. I mean, I know that was the photographer.
Mira, yeah.
Yeah. But still, I mean, just to style that and position their hands and, their outfits. Where does that come from? I mean, where does your eye for knowing where to position things come from? Or is it just natural?
Yeah, Krisha, I don't know. I mean, people ask me what I do for a living, and I say I play dress up and I daydream. And that's really, truly what I do. And people will say, how long have you been doing this? And I mean, really my whole life. I think I'm just a free spirit. And my I think my best work comes from within, and it's inspired by my relationships with other people. So it's really not. I mean, I appreciate you saying that, but it's really a total sum of the parts and the people that are involved. I'm just like the person that's bringing it all together, and so it's really about all of the artists involved.
Yeah.
The writer who's telling the story, the photographer who's bringing the story to life through their lens, the prop stylist who is making the table look way more magical than it would have looked on his own, if that makes sense.
That's true. You do have a tendency, I think, when working with you, to bring together a team of people that have a lot of different talents to bring the vision alive. And I witnessed that when we were at the Greenbrier. And is that typical for a magazine to have that many people working on a style shoot to bring, for instance, a feature and a cover story alive? I mean, because when I was there, I come as the writer, but I didn't realize you mentioned prop stylist, the table stylist. I mean, is that typical?
It's a major production, Krisha. I mean, I don't think anyone, unless they are a part of the production team, I don't think anyone has an idea of how much of a production it actually is. And it's not just like when you get there and you do the work. I mean, it's really any production, a music festival, a printing a magazine. You know, it's like, okay, you go to print and it's there, the pages are amazing, but it's a whole month of, you know, an editor and a team, you know, the executive editor, Kathy Martin, making sure that all of the stories from all the different people are coming together. And so
Right.
it's the kind of the same way with the photo shoot. You know, people look at these glossy, beautiful images and they think, oh my God, your work and your life is so glamorous. And I mean, it's glamorous for that moment, but it's all grit. I mean, it's all sweat, and there's just so much more to it than you could ever imagine.
That's right, because the final picture is so glossy and beautiful, but it's just amazing to know and have the backstory of all the work that it took to get to that picture. It reminds me of when we were at the Greenbrier and we did that shot of all of us playing cards at the very end, and we needed some males, right? We had 2 female models. And no one knew that those males were actually dentists at the convention that we yanked from the convention to come. We borrowed them to come be in the shoot.
That photo is my favorite photo of the whole production, and one of my favorite photos of all time experience.
Wow.
And you're hitting the nail on the head. There's so many things that go into making that photo, and you know, like we just went and found, I said, okay, we have this killer game table in the presidential suite. We've got these 2 killer models. This is the most amazing room I've ever been in my life. They need to be playing cards with some guys.
We need some men.
And so, you know, they were walking by, they've got their dental convention and their golf game going on.
That's
and,
right.
You know, and they're pretty good looking guys. And we're like, okay, that's the first step is like an idea, right? And the second step is finding 2 men. And literally in that case, they just sort of walked in, and they were good looking enough to want to put them in front of the camera.
We knew they had good teeth, at least.
They had good teeth.
Because they were dentists. So, they had the mustache and everything. But they fit
the clothes,
the bill. The
Krisha,
clothes,
they needed, forgive me, now you got me all excited.
Yeah, no, I want you to relive
we needed
it.
them to be, stylish. And so we said, look, we can bring it. And boy, did they bring it.
And we pulled in the bartender from nearby. He had a cameo in there. Yes.
Sam. And
Good
he
old
was
Sam.
incredible, Krisha. I mean,
great.
I was really nervous. I thought, oh my gosh. He rolled in with like 3 different types of brown liquor, and they're all top shelf. And he said, well, gentlemen, which one do you want? And I'm like, don't drink the liquor.
That's right.
These are just props.
They're props.
And it's 10
You
o'clock
can give
at
it to
night
us.
in the presidential suite. And so he brought it in, and I said, oh my gosh, Krisha, I don't know. This is not going to go well at all. I'm going to get this bill, and I can't afford to pay for all this liquor. And Sam just turned his back and said, ma'am, I got this under control.
That's right.
Have
And
a
he
lovely
did have it under
evening.
control. He did. And the Greenbrier appreciated it too, because it was 14 pages. And it was a beautiful feature piece for them.
Yeah.
So, but we pulled it all together, and it came from, that imagination of yours. And you've had a lot of shoots like that. I mean, women in ball gowns dancing on tables, eating pizza late night. I mean, it was a lot of imagination, like you said. But I wanted to touch on something you said earlier about stylish.
Okay.
What is your definition of stylish? Because you had mentioned, the guys walked in and they had style, or the couple that you photographed with the swing, you walked into their house and it was so stylish. What to you triggers that idea? This is stylish.
I think it's, just from an immediate sort of initial response, it's, like I said, I'm very visually charged. So it's something that sets the object or the person or whatever, it catches your eye. So it's, usually if it's a person, there's an air about them, a confidence about them. Let me just jump to the chase and say that the most stylish, to me, personal style, the most definitive explanation is how you behave and treat other people. So you can't see that
Right.
with
How does
2
that
handsome
translate?
men that walk in the room.
Yeah.
you're basing it on something that is, just skin deep, right? It's just what you see. But I think ultimately, for me, if we really get down to it, the heart of the matter, the most stylish thing is how you treat other people. And I think oftentimes that, what is inside of you is what comes out of you. And that has great impacts on, when you dress. It's a very psychological
Mhm,
thing. And
mhm.
when you get dressed, I tell my clients that I work with, it's a sign of respect, not just that you respect the other person, but you respect yourself.
Mhm.
And
And that manifests into the choices that you make, the clothing that you pick, the accessories that you choose.
yeah,
So that comes from within. That's
yeah,
wonderful. And I think I think a lot of people see the difference when that's manifested. So let's talk a little bit about you as a stylist now.
okay.
Is that a profession that you've had for a while that has now then translated into working for the magazine? You mentioned you were still doing that on the side, or is that your main that's your main source of income?
Well, so it's been it'll be four it's been 13 and a half years. November 1st is kind of what I say is my start date with my business. I mean, it's really been my whole life. My grandmother was a stylist and buyer for an upscale luxury boutique in Eastern North Carolina. And so she would travel to New York for buying shows, and in the 40s, at a time when I think people were there, it just seemed like such a lovely, debonair
Mm.
time in
Mhm.
life. And
Mhm.
I just love that whole old Hollywood where the charm, and it was just very romantic and nostalgic, and the way that people treated, and they were sort of like really into, really into that whole experience of living. And
Right. Really
um,
into just very intentional about what they chose. Is that what you're
yes,
saying? Yeah,
yes.
it
And
shows in terms
so
of what they wore, how they conducted themselves.
100%. And so as a small child, I saw that in my grandmother and my grandfather, who was also very stylish.
Mm.
And I just sort of was like, glamorized from a young age. And I just carried that with me, I think.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I became in my mid 30s that I finally figured a way to formally turn, after I stepped away from a previous career,
Mhm.
turn that into, to be a stay-at-home mom. I tapped into that creative energy and found a way to turn my passion into a career. But anyway, it all started with a blog, but the personal styling is sort of the foundation. So working with people to dress them, and then the editorial styling and the working with models and came next. And so it's sort of a third, a third, a third, Krisha, a
Mhm.
third private styling, a third magazine, and a third, commercial styling and creative direction
Mhm.
for individuals, businesses, and brands.
Right, but it's all the common thread is that you elevate people and you try to make them look their best. And I think it's really interesting here in Charlotte that that is something that has become more and more important. I think
Yeah.
in every profession. Do you find that why is it important that people use a stylist in their profession?
Well, I mean, like I said, I think it's very psychological. I think that let me think about this. I could go in a million directions. I think it's like my dear friend Tracy Zeller,
Mhm.
who's an interior designer. I worked with her for 9 years, and when she was working as an interior designer, she would say, who am I as a small business, female owned small business owner, if I want people to hire me to design their homes,
Right.
and I'm not putting into the system by hiring, a painter to come to
Mm.
my house, or,
Mhm.
an electrician,
Mhm.
or, a stylist, or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
We don't, we live in a very exciting time in the world where you can be anything you want to be
Right.
overnight. You put it on Instagram, and guess what? I'm a
Yeah,
professional
anything, right.
anything, and you can do that. But I think it's just really important that you don't feel the urge or the necessity to have to do everything on your own. And
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
work with a professional who can help bring out the best in you,
Right.
who can tap into what's on the inside of you and pull that out of you so your confidence level is elevated. And then you can walk into the world with a smile on your face and feel good about yourself and impact other people along the
That's right.
way.
That's right, and do what you're
I
meant to
mean, look at
do.
you.
Well,
I
I'm
mean, I
taking my
can't take
cues.
credit for
No,
this,
no,
but you
no, but
look
I'm taking my cues because
stunning.
I knew that I was gonna be sitting next to the style editor today of South Park Magazine, so that's why. I mean, and it's true, when I've heard this before, you are your own resume. It's kinda like what you were saying. If you want people to see you as a qualified interior decorator or a qualified writer or whatever it is, you have to manifest those qualities in your own life. And you are who you know. Of course, like, it's always like, tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. You're getting the energy from those people, but also those circle of friends tend to be the people who, when tapped into, use their traits and their abilities, to improve, who you are. Because we always try to find friends that, are doing things that we can't do well, right?
Or find friends who have a common thread with you. And I
Mhm.
think that's really been, honestly, if you want to ask me anything about my career, I think
Mhm.
that's been the biggest thing for me, Krisha, is
Mm.
surrounding myself with like-minded people, people that are talented, artistic, who inspire you
Mhm.
in your work, but also inspire you personally. And
Mhm.
I
Even
mean, the
better.
two of you, Krisha and Richard, I mean, it's, I think it's really all about surrounding yourself with like minded, positive people
Right.
who are there to support you and I don't think that positivity is ever overrated.
I love that.
I
I
think it's
love that.
transformative.
That's right. I think so too, and we believe that. And even though our gifts are different, we can bring to the table our own gifts, knowing that we share the positivity in elevating those gifts. So
Well,
I
I
love
always
that.
say like mindset of abundance.
Mhm.
There's competition. My
I
great
love that.
grandfather said with his little general store in downtown Fort Mill in the 60s when True Value came in, he said competition breeds business.
Mm.
And I completely agree with that statement. I think that there is enough for all of us, and it's exciting, and we can grow and learn from one another. And I mean, Richard and I just were talking about this today on the way
Mhm.
to the Mint Museum.
Mhm.
What we can learn from people who may only have a couple years of experience, but we're constantly learning, right? What we
That's
can do to
right.
improve ourselves.
That's right. And I mean, that's actually a theory in economics. It's called cluster theory. And so when
Oh,
you cluster yourself with people who have like-minded
yeah, yeah,
abilities, or even regardless of the level of experience, you're always going to breed abundance because because you have that cluster,
yeah.
of that kind of energy. And so if someone's not finding something that they need with one person, they don't have to go very far to find it with another. And that's
Yeah.
the beauty of elevating a place, is that you have a cluster of the talent in one place. So
And I think that's why the photo shoots turn out looking. If you really think that they're that fabulous,
yes,
Krisha,
I
I
do.
think that's why they turn out looking that good. Is because
Mhm.
when you set a a space that's happy and joyful and positive and upbeat, artists can thrive,
That's
and
right.
you don't micromanage. I don't know what's worse, being micromanaged or micromanaging. I don't know what's worse. I think they're
Right.
both terrible. And so when you just give someone the freedom to create and be their best selves, it's like literally, knock on wood, I cannot remember a single time that like I had a photo shoot and there was like this went wrong. You know what I mean? It's like literally nothing ever goes wrong. And I
Mhm.
think it's just because the talented people that are all doing their very best work, um, what could go wrong?
Right. They're coming together and they're shining in their own area.
And then
So,
it's so much more. And then when something goes wrong,
right.
when something doesn't fall into place like you think it was going to, someone will have an idea and it's like way better than you ever could have expected or
That's
dreamed
right.
of.
That's right. Wonderful. My guest today is Whitley Adkins. She is the style editor for South Park Magazine and celebrating her 10 years with the magazine this month. So again, congratulations, 10 years. I want to go back to talking a little bit about where you came from and where this passion and these ideas come from. You mentioned Fort Mill. Is that where you're from? Tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up.
Well, I was born in Spartanburg. My father's from South Carolina, and my mother's from Eastern North Carolina, both from small towns.
Hmm.
I was born in Spartanburg, and then we moved to Wilmington, and so I lived at the beach until I was 4,
Hmm.
and then we moved to Asheville, and that's my home. I grew up in Asheville, and
Creative town.
yeah, I mean, and I love nature, I think that I do my best, honestly, my most creative thoughts come to me when I'm running in nature on the trails. And so, Asheville is probably creative town because
Hmm.
of the topography and the geography, like
Mm-hmm.
sets that tone. So anyway, grew up in Asheville and then went to St. Mary's Episcopal Girls School in Raleigh and then Chapel Hill. I had a 2-year stint in New York City. I pretty much moved to New York City because I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. And I felt like if I stayed in the South, I would fail to the expectations that I assumed were being set for me. Whether
Mm-hmm.
they were set for me or not, I just didn't have it. I didn't have a game plan. And I felt like if I stayed here, I would have to do things a certain way. So I just ran off to New York City. And we don't have time for that, but it was a very, I highly recommend it to anyone and everyone to move away. And it was wonderful. And then I came back here. So I've been in Charlotte for 23 years.
Hmm. And probably when you came back to Charlotte, you had more to give because of what you learned and saw and experienced in New York City in terms of your creativity.
I mean, I think like, I mean, you're so good with words. Like when you get kicked down, I mean,
Hmm.
it's such a hard place to be. And
Mm.
there are times like, I think when you're an artist,
Mhm.
I mean, Richard and I talk about this all the time. And I think he's like the man, you know, he's the man. And I have these conversations and I'm like, well, if Richard's talking like this, then, I must not be too bad. But, I think it's like when you're an artist, I saw Adam Duritz, the singer
Mhm.
of Counting Crows.
Counting
He said
Crows, yeah.
recently, he was talking about how artists like, it is kind of like this, like, painful. It's this wonderful place to be, but it's
Uh-huh.
kind of painful at the same time because,
Mhm.
you, I mean, you feel everything. And that's why you can be such a great artist
Mhm.
is because you feel and you can bring it to life and articulate something for the rest of those who maybe not be as much of a feeler.
That's right.
So
So find a way to show your art. Your art will always find a way if it's inside of yourself.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think when you fall down
Mhm.
and all those difficult trying moments in your
Mhm.
life
Mhm.
that are really hard to get through when
Mhm.
you're going through them, it's when you get through them that you are able to do your best work
Mhm.
because those experiences are bring you to who you are.
That's right. They inform who you are. That's true. You have your grandmother to thank for a
Yes.
lot of your inspiration.
Yes.
And there are probably other people in your life that have inspired and informed your work to bring it to life. We all need help in stylish. Like today, for instance, I got my hair done with
With Farah.
With
She
Farah
yeah.
Inspired Beauty. Yeah, she does a great job. And your outfit too is gorgeous. I've been eyeing it.
Rosie
So
Asseline. I got
yeah.
it from the edit sale.
Oh,
Because I
nice.
don't ever pay full price because, the artist.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, so tell us a little bit about some of the people who inspire you and, inform your look and how others can, if they want to look their best without breaking the bank, because not everyone, some people say, I can't look like that because I can't afford to. What would you
Right.
say to someone like that?
Well, Krisha, the answer to your first question about
Mm.
people that have inspired me, I mean,
Mm.
I think again, it's really that's what it's all about is the people in your life that support you and love you and when you're, struggling the most are there for you and can bring out the best of you and help you through life's journey. So, I mean, I would say any of us is who are we ourselves without the people around us. So I'm again, that's really what it's all about.
Please
The
surround
only
yourself
reason why I've
by.
been able to do anything is because of the people around me. I mean, obviously, my grandmother, who I'm named after, was the most stylish. She's my ultimate style icon, and you know, she was just a very confident, beautiful woman, and I'm grateful for that. And my mother's a wonderful artist. She's an incredible artist, and she worked hard as a single parent to provide, and I think instilled that sense of independence in me and survival skills in me. I would be remiss if I didn't say, you know, having someone like Pam Stowe, one of my very, very best friends in your court. You know, there have been so many times when I have wanted to accomplish something. Like I know you have it in your career, and Richard has it, whoever, you know, I really want to do this thing. And, you know, I feel like I eat nose for breakfast, like the nose, the nose, the nose, the nose, but that's what keeps you going. And, you know, it's like you think, I want to do this thing. And then when you're able to realize the things, all the yeses and the things that you do have, and the people that have been in your court, like, so to have a friend like Pam Stowe, who has, for whatever reason, decided she wanted to love me and be my friend, and she's not she's not a paying customer. She's just my friend, and she's the most gracious, elegant woman who's made really a hobby, not a hobby, but she's so good at it. She's so good at championing other people, and that is huge.
It's key to have in your corner.
It's key, and
key.
people that give you an opportunity. So,
Right.
you know,
That's
SouthPark
important.
Magazine,
Yes.
Sarah Crosland,
Yes.
for saying, when I pitched her this project 10 years ago, and when she said yes, and I about fell out of my pants when Marsha Merrill helped me get that opportunity.
Right.
I said, Sarah Crosland knows who I am. Are you kidding me? I was in shock. And then Caroline Portillo, when I said, hey, can we create a position? And then
That's amazing.
when the Observer sold the magazine, and David at Warnoff and Pinehurst purchased it, I called him before he even owned it, and I said, hi, I don't know if you know me, but my name is Whitley, and I'm the style editor for SouthPark Magazine, and I'd like to talk to you about making sure that I can keep my job. He's like, Whitley, I don't know you. He was like, and I actually don't even own the magazine
Not
quite
yet.
yet.
But he remembered you, and that's the point, because when he did own the magazine, when they did, you know, change hands, he remembered you. And that's the bottom line, taking the initiative and fighting for what your vision is for yourself.
And he said, and we have this lady that's going to be the editor. Her name is Kathy Martin. So really, you're just going to have to talk to her. So I
And
literally
luckily,
called her, and I went to lunch, and I was like, hey, Kathy, I know you don't know me. However, and she said, well, and she was so sweet. I mean, you know, Kathy's
great.
nature is so, you know, calm, and, you know, and so she said, well, why don't we just give it a few months, and you know, because I had been there for like 5 years or whatever, and she came in, and bless her heart, 3 months later, she said, I think it's going to work out. And so, you know, thank you to Kathy for instilling the confidence in me to help assemble an amazing team to create work on the pages of SouthPark Magazine for all of our readers to enjoy.
Love it. Love it. You do need champions. And speaking of which, and we'll get back to that part about what you would how you would advise people to continue to be stylish without breaking the bank. But I do want to mention that in the May issue of SouthPark Magazine, they're doing a feature on your home.
That's right.
And so tell us about that really quickly,
Yep.
and what you hope the readers will take away from that.
Well, my home is 100 years old, and it's my dream home. And I can't believe still that I live in this 1,900 square foot, 100-year-old home that leans and there's cracks in the wall, and it's my absolutely dream home. It has
Mm,
such a soul.
mm.
But almost everything in my house is either inherited, hand me down, thrifted, vintage, side of the road treasure, handmade, made by my children. You know, everything for
Very
me.
personal.
It is very personal, but it's personal, but it's not necessarily personal to me.
Mm,
It's like everything I want tells a story. And so if I want to have something in my home that has a story to tell. So really nothing in my house is like, you know, brand new. And the same, and also, by the way, vintage stuff, old stuff was made so much better than anything is made today. So when you thrift, when you buy secondhand, because you want to know about people that say, I
sure,
can't afford to do XYZ,
sure.
well, that's not true. Um, you can, both in your home. I love interior design as much as I love fashion. And, I think if you're into one thing, you're sort of, the arts, you're sort of into all of it. But you can furnish your home on a much smaller budget and have things that are made to last. And you
Mhm,
can do that with your wardrobe as well. And that's a big topic right now with tariffs.
mhm.
Is that going to force people to do more secondhand shopping? I think it will, and I'm here for it because when you thrift and secondhand and vintage shop, you can have one of a kind, unique pieces in your wardrobe that cost very little and they tell a story. So, it's a really cool opportunity to, get
Mm.
creative and tell the story of you. Anyway, I just think it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's beautiful and actually very timely because that is a good message for people who are now struggling with the idea of having to pay more for everyday things, and with the tariffs. So that is a good suggestion to look for the gems in secondhand stores. And also, I've heard that friends even do clothing swaps and things like that too.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
I have a very close, very very dear friend and close friend and girl client that I work with in Wilson, North Carolina, Gray
Hmm.
Joyner. She's an interior designer,
Hmm.
and I went to help her get ready for a big antique and design event that she was going to in Nashville, Tennessee. And she said, "Whitley, I need more skirts because I love separates because you
Hmm.
can make outfits."
Hmm.
And she said, "Can you please bring me skirts?" And I said, "You know what? You do not need any more clothes. I'm bringing you all the skirts in my own personal wardrobe because we are not spending one more dime, and we have the same taste and we're the same size." And so I brought her, a whole car full of clothes, and we played dress up and
Hmm.
matched her clothes with my skirts. And she said, "Okay, I'm not taking these things unless you take for every item you bring me that you take something out of my wardrobe
Wow.
and take back." And
Yeah.
Krisha, I'm here to tell you that was so fun
Mm.
to have. And, I know what's in her closet, right? So, she has the coolest stuff.
You're like, I want that, that, that. I've been eyeing this.
And so I had a whole new wardrobe for the next month. I had a whole new wardrobe, and guess how many dollars I spent on it?
Zero.
0.
There you go. You heard it here first in South Park Says. Everyone find a friend whose wardrobe they've been eyeing and do a swap.
And it's fun
And you
and
have a
it's
whole new closet.
meaningful. And then
Yeah.
you have this, like, it brings friendships and
Yeah.
relationships. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like those photo shoots you asked
Yeah.
about, Krisha. I
Yeah.
mean, thank goodness I had this dream of doing a travel style feature at the Greenbrier. I had a
Mm.
dream, and I thought, I don't know anybody at the Greenbrier. And you had messaged me previously to say, "I'm new to town.
That's right.
I'm a writer. We have mutual friends.
Hmm.
Can we meet?" And I said, "Absolutely." And the next thing I know, guess where I got married,
Yeah.
Whitley? Guess where I've been 20
That's
times.
right.
And
That's
so
right. Meant to
and
be.
it's all because you reached out
Mm.
with positivity to say, can we meet? Can you help? And I said, absolutely. And the next thing I know, you in return are saying, I want to help you do this. Style is all about how you treat other people.
Love it. I love it. That's beautiful. And saying, can we meet? That's important. Can we meet? What do you think of creating this position? What do you think about swapping these clothes? So I know that you mentioned that the outdoors is really important to you.
Hmm.
You have a nature retreat, am I correct?
Of
That you,
sorts, yes. So I think being in nature, when I do my very best creative thinking when I'm in nature, when I'm trail running and when I'm in nature. And I mentioned my grandmother, who's my style icon, was from Eastern North Carolina. My mom's from there, but my father grew up in a small town in Fort Mill, South Carolina, and my ancestors were cotton farmers, and so
mm,
we have this land that's been in our family since 1866, and it is just very spiritual and peaceful. And my father's family, they were very simple people who, financially, monetarily, were not lavish, but they were very rich in um, having a big heart and
mm,
serving the community and sharing everything they had with others. And my father was that way. And he passed away 3.5 years ago. And now I inherited this piece of land where his cabin in the woods on a pond was. And you go and you're just, you recently did a story on nature bathing,
that's right.
and that's pretty much what I do when I'm there is walk around and let the grass pull through my feet and the leaves crunch underneath and hear the trees blowing in the wind and wake up to a symphony of birds in the field and hear the deer making their noise and the mallards and the ducks setting on the pond in the morning and quacking. And it's just so conducive. There's zero technology and zero electronics out there. it's
Getting Walden vibes a little bit.
it's
So
just nature.
beautiful. And it's called Atkins Farm, is that
Well,
correct?
so I basically, as a way to share this s- spiritually rich place with others, probably while I was running, came up with this idea to give it a name. It's called Adkins Nature Retreat. And I have a website, adkinsnatureretreat.com. And I have a tiny house that was a renovated 1960s camper on wheels.
Mhm.
You've been there, you've
Yes,
seen
it's
it.
gorgeous.
That's available for rent. I have hosted workshops there. There's been folks that have hosted women leadership workshops, very spiritual, yoga in nature, artist workshops. I have portrait sessions, photography sessions in nature.
Right.
And so there's just a number of wonderful things that you can do in nature,
And
Krisha.
so if they absolutely, and we are firm believers of that, and it is a gorgeous place, and it's not that far out of the city. In fact, it's only about 20 minutes away from the city. And if anyone wants to find out more about it, they can go to atkinsnatureretreat.com. Is
Hmm.
that correct? And also, I wanted to mention that you have an Instagram handle where you display all of your work and your styles, and
Oh,
that is Queen City Style, the Queen City Style.
yeah, the Queen City Style. It's just the Queen City Style is my Instagram.
Mm.
I rebranded at the beginning of the pandemic, and so my website's whitleyadkins.com. But I I don't think that I could shake in Charlotte the Queen City Style. So
And that's what you are,
that's
the
what it
Queen City
is.
Style. Thanks for talking with me. And if you want to learn more about Whitley Atkins and her work, as well as read the feature about her home, pick up the May issue of South Park Magazine or at southparkmagazine.com. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks.